Welcome to Module Monday. Module Monday is a video series where I look at a cool PowerShell module I think you should check out every Monday. This Monday we're looking at Pansies. Pansies is a PowerShell module that lets you kind of control colored output using the full RGB color spectrum inside PowerShell consoles. So it is Pansies because it stands for PowerShell ANSI Escape Sequences. You can download Pansies from the PowerShell gallery, and make sure when you do so that you include the allow clobber parameter on an install module, because it overwrites write host to support the full color spectrum. So we're going to look through some examples of Pansies, and I'm just going to use the Windows terminal to do so. So there are a couple built-in commandlets inside Pansies. There's actually only a few, but we're going to go through a bunch of different parameters and see how to use them. First of all, we're going to look at new text. So new text is kind of the commandlet used to output text and specify the colors for that text. So in this example here, I'm using new text, specifying hello world, and then a foreground color of red and a background color of white. You can see here it kind of outputs all the things that I input, including the formatted string on the right side here. In addition to being able to output colors, it can also output HTML5 entities. So for example, this over here, this ampersand, hearts, and then a semicolon will output a little heart. So as you can see in this to string over here, it actually formats that heart to the HTML coded entity. So if you actually go to, in this case, W3 schools, you can see that there are a bunch of different coded entities that you can actually include in your strings via Pansies. And you could just use these kind of, I guess, entity strings here to output those entities. Alright, so in addition to being able to one thing I didn't mention was, instead of using a named color here, I actually used the hex color that you would use kind of in a CSS style color. So you can get real fancy in terms of the color usage here, and you can see that I'm actually using CSS colors rather than the named colors. In addition to being able to use CSS colors and named colors, you can also use what's called xterm index colors. So in this case, I'm using xt5, which is the index color. I'm going to output the spades HTML entity, and you can see the xt5 color. It looks like this. And if you want a list of the xterm colors, you can actually go to a cheat sheet such as this one, and you have this xterm number, and you can see that 5 is this purple color. And if you were to just kind of change the index here after that xt value, you can actually get real fancy with the colors. Alright, in addition to using the new text commandlet, what you can actually do is you can just use write host directly, and it supports these features. So Pansies actually overwrites write host, and it does so that you can use things like the CSS colors as well as the HTML entities directly in write host. So now you can see that I'm outputting hello world again with a clubs at the end of it. So another thing that we can do is we can actually embed new text directly inside write host. So here's a call where I am actually saying hello world. I'm specifying some colors for the actual overarching hello world text, but I'm also specifying new text inside of an expandable string inside my write host string. So that will have a different color than the rest of the text. So now you can see that the hello world was this kind of gray and yellow, and then my heart was red and white. So some additional commandlets that are provided by Pansies include creating gradients. So we have this get gradient commandlet, and if we want to create a gradient from red to blue, what it's actually going to do is it's going to output the gradient kind of colors. So the idea here is that you can generate a gradient using get gradient, and as you can see here, it kind of shows you an example of what that looks like on the left hand side. It provides the xterm number, the name of the console colors, and the actual hex value that it's going through to create this gradient. And if you wanted to actually utilize that to output a gradient, you could do something like this. So I'm calling get gradient again. This time I'm calling, I'm going red to blue, but I'm including the flatten parameter, which turns this gradient array from a two-dimensional array into a single-dimensional array. So then I can pass it to for each object, and then I'm going to call writeHost with the color that was kind of provided by getGradient. So now when I do that, you can see it outputs the gradient inside my terminal. Right now, by default, what it does is it actually outputs the gradient based on the width of my terminal, and that's why it kind of lines up really nicely here. But if you only wanted to write part of the actual width of the terminal, you could actually use the width parameter of getGradient, and then as you can see, it only writes, in this case, 20 characters wide. So you can kind of use this to, build cool things for your prompt and that kind of stuff directly with getGradient. Alright, the other thing that it provides is the ability to get complementary colors. So if you want to see the complementary color of cyan, you can run that, and you can see that it returns red is the complementing color for that, along with all the color information that you could use for writeHost and new text. Another really cool thing that's included in Pansies is the ability to use inline colors using their built-in provider. So what they did is they actually implemented a PowerShell provider that provides a bunch of different colors, and what you can actually do is inside strings directly, it will turn this kind of inline provider item access into an actual escape sequence. So when I run that, you'll see that it colors the section in between red and clear. So it pretty much turns any text inside these two items into the text or the color that you select in the first bracket. So there's a bunch of cool things you can do with that provider as well. I just want to show you finally some settings that you can use. First of all, you can set the RGB color mode. So all the stuff I've been showing you requires a terminal that supports these colors. If you're using, I think, previous to Windows 10, you're not going to get these colors. So to kind of give you an example of what the 16-bit color mode looks like, you can actually set it to console color for the color mode. And now when we do the same kind of gradient that I showed earlier from red to blue, what you'll see here is that there aren't that many colors available, so the gradient doesn't look that great. So this is what it would look like on a console that doesn't support all these colors. So now if we switch back to the automatic console color mode and we run the same gradient command, you'll see that we have a nice gradient that supports all the different colors inside this terminal. So in this video, we actually went through using Pansies to kind of output cool colors inside your PowerShell prompts. This is nice for creating cool custom prompts, or if you have some cool commandlets that you just want to beef up with some cool output, this would be a good way to do it. So go out in the PowerShell gallery and get that installed. And if you like these videos, make sure to subscribe to my channel for more Module Mondays.